I took a lot out of that, and I enjoyed it. Like you said, it was great peak MLS soccer. But if you're looking at it in a long-term situation, maybe a little bit worried that your back line is conceding to 9 men when you should just be possessing the ball and not letting them touch it. But to each their own. There's still one more great game we can talk about, and I'm going to leave that to you, JR. LAFC, LA Galaxy, El Tráfico, LA Derby. Take it away and just give us everything from a fan's point of view.
Yeah, so in a nod to Rage Against the Machine, the Battle of Los Angeles, right? That's it's funny. We have, our 3252, who you guys might know as our big fan base in the North End. Not a big fan of El Tráfico. So it's one of those things that a focus group kind of came up with, and now our biggest fan base doesn't like it. So we roll with the Battle of Los Angeles, or as we like to say on our podcast, Defenders of the Bank, the 110 collision. That's another fun one because it's all about the freeway there. Cool. But either way, look, that's the rivalry that's never disappointed so far in the 7 games. I think we had a 1-1 match like our 4th game in, and that was the only one where we didn't have absolute fireworks. And coming into this tournament, I didn't know what to expect because no Carlos Vela and no Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So you didn't have your natural villain on the other side. And look, Chicha, as much as he's a villain, I don't think a lot of people villainize him nearly as much as they did Zlatan, right? Especially with a lot of Mexican national team fans here in Los Angeles. They love themselves some Chicha. So it was going to be really interesting to see how it played out. And unfortunately, right before the Derby, we get the news. I think it was a torn skirt or whatever was wrong with Chicha, where, he was out now. And unfortunately, he's out for the rest of the tournament, which is unfortunate, 2 to 4 weeks. Big injury there for Carson. But I was disappointed because we didn't get to see them at full strength. We knew coming in they wouldn't see us at full strength. I think to know Jonathan Dos Santos for that squad really, really hurts Carson. So, the big change for us that we made, and this is a thing, I don't know how heavily you guys follow LAFC, but our goalkeeper situation from minute 1 of our franchise has been very interesting. It was supposed to be Buba Lopez to be our starter in the start of 2018. He could never stay healthy. So Tyler Miller, who had started like 6 total games in his MLS career, for Tacoma, I think before that, and started a couple Open Cup games for the Sounders, he stepped in, and I thought he played really, really well in 2018. Our fan base, not so much. They're not big fans of Tyler Miller, which I couldn't really understand. I was on Team Tyler from the beginning. They wanted Buba or they wanted somebody different. And then we bring in Pablo Cisniega, and all of a sudden the fan base just clamors for Pablo every single time they can. And unfortunately, when Tyler got sent to national team camp and was unused, I mean, not even as a tackling dummy or someone to carry the water, he just sat and sat for that entire 3-week camp. And he came back and he lost not just his starting spot, but he lost that game fitness. He lost that pace. He lost what you need as a keeper to really feel like you're in the flow. And so we had Pablo finish out the season for us. And then we signed Kenneth Vermeer in the offseason. And the big switch for us right before this match, Kenneth Vermeer did not start in goal for us, who he had been our starter for the first couple matches of the regular season. And obviously for the first match, the 3-3 kind of lackluster effort by LAFC's back line against Houston. So we start Pablo, and our fan base, they didn't like Kenneth Vermeer. They wanted to see Pablo. I'm not so sure Pablo's shown anything over the course of his 9 games that he's played for us. But look, when you're on the back line for a Derby win that was this big, the tale of 2 halves, 6-2, first half, I mean, our back line, when you trade Walker Zimmerman, and I know people can be split on Walker Zimmerman, right? I think he's a great leader. I've been able to watch him play for the last couple seasons for us, and then unfortunately to watch him flourish for both of Nashville's games. By the way, has anybody said how Major League Soccer is planning on making up 3 regular season games for Dallas and for Nashville?
Nope, still trying to figure that out.
How is that going to – I'm looking at the table, right? And it was games played, 4-5, 4-5, 2. What is going to happen there with Dallas and Nashville? But
no plan.
Either way, yeah, right? There's no plan for any of this stuff because I don't even think they think there's going to be a season.
I think they're done after this.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation to begin with. But to see what Walker has been able to do, first goal in Nashville history, and look, it's not an even trade when you're bringing it. I love Dejan. Dejan is a really nice guy. He's filled in really well. He's 35 years old. Dejan Jakovic is not your answer over 37 games in the course of a Major League Soccer season. And when you disrupt a back line that had improved so much from 2018 to 2019, to see that first goal, I don't know what Latif Blessing was doing in the middle of 3 other defenders for us, and that ball ricochets off his back heel, and of course, own goal. We go down early, and all of us in the chat room, all of us in the fan base, we're thinking, oh God, here we go again. This is a very LAFC start, not just for this tournament, but against Carson. And the player who I felt was the best player in Major League Soccer over those first couple games, and especially in our matches against León when we played them in the CONCACAF Champions League, Diego Rossi, the guy is special. I mean, it came out today, Leipzig wants Diego Rossi, and LAFC doesn't want to spend, or doesn't want to sell him for less than $18 million. So I like that. And Tyler Adams, they got a good pipeline there. But I don't know if he's an $18 million guy. I hope that's what they're saying in the media so that we can sell him for maybe 14 or 15. But, John Thorrington has said from the beginning, we are a seller's club, right? So I'm fully expecting, unfortunately, Diego Rossi to go. And I really need Edward Atuesta to play worse because he's just looking better and better in the midfield. I think he's going to go as well. But you had that Rossi PK, which wasn't a little soft on BWP's part. Look, I have gotten to see Bradley Wright Phillips now play for 2 total games. And he reminds me of the guy down at the YMCA who's got the knee brace on, who's got the short shorts, the Chuck Taylors, and all of a sudden you look down and he has 30 points and 15 rebounds, and you've been elbowed in the side of the head 4 times. Like, how does that guy not score every game with those cheeky runs that he makes? I love Bradley Wright Phillips. And that little, I don't know if it was a flop because it's Perry Kitchen. He's terrible. So it could have been all Perry Kitchen. But to see Bradley Wright Phillips go down to earn the PK, and Rossi struck that PK. I loved it. Totally got the guy going the wrong way. I mean, Bingham's a quality keeper. Bingham really is a quality keeper. But he reminds me a lot of what Tim Howard must have felt like his last couple seasons in Major League Soccer when you've got a porous front line. Giancarlo Gonzalez was not in our starting lineup, but somehow was one of our best players on the field for Carson. I mean, running in the wrong direction, totally turned around by his guys. He looked terrible. So you get the PK, you draw back even, you think, all right, we're going to have a little bit of time to settle down. Nope. Pavone, he gets 2 cracks at it. I guess Cisniega got off his line early. I don't know. But we go down 2-1, come back again with Rossi right before halftime. And that was huge because I think it allowed Bob Bradley to go into halftime and not have to kill everybody in the locker room. He could talk about some nice things because it was 0-0 at the half. I think that was important. And I also think, look, we knew Dayon was coming out no matter what. He got a silly yellow in the first half. But some of those yellows that Carson picked up in the first half, I think it was Insua picked up an early yellow that was just such a boneheaded yellow because he's their one decently mobile defender back there trying to do some things. And now he can't play as aggressively over the course of the next 45 minutes. And what you saw was just that snowball really starting to roll downhill. What I love more than anything else, so you guys probably don't know about the curse of the third DP that we have at LAFC. Andre Horta's very first touch for us was a beautiful pass to Carson to basically lose us the derby that day. And so ever since then, we have been looking, wanting, waiting, wishing, hoping for something to come from our third DP. And unfortunately, Brian Rodriguez has given the fan base very, very little over the course of his entire time. I mean, his first ever appearance was to take out an injured Carlos Vela and a hamstring injury in the derby. So you're looking at a huge move just to get him onto the pitch, and he didn't score last season. And I'm sorry, he's playing in the attacking positions. He's got to score. Preseason, he scores 3 goals, and what I said on our podcast, those 3 goals were scored in front of no fans. So this should be perfect for him. Preseason, no fans, closed games. And what I loved about Brian Rodriguez on that goal in the 56th minute with Bradley Wright Phillips, where, he just finds his way, right? He has to nutmeg the guy on the shot, cheeky angle, beautiful goal. That was off of a Brian Rodriguez pass. And I think 6 months earlier at the start of the season, maybe even, he tries to go 1v1 with his man because he thinks he's younger, faster, bigger, better, stronger, and take his guy. But now he's working under the tutelage of a guy like Bradley Wright Phillips, and he knows the guy on the wing, he's only done this 109 times in his Major League Soccer career. He will figure it out. Beautiful pass by Brian Rodriguez, huge assist, and those are the things I think that are going to be so important from Brian Rodriguez because we saw that again. 75th minute, another long pass. Cifuentes to Brian Rodriguez to Diego Rossi. Love Diego Rossi. Oh, my goodness. We have a chant for Diego Rossi in our stands. Scored the first goal against the Sounders, 11th minute. He's our guy. And it was just, you felt the momentum shift after that BWP goal. But then Rossi, after he scored, now we're up 2. You really felt like our teams kind of started to feel themselves a little bit for LAFC. You had, I didn't know that a couple of guys had these clubs in their bags, but Mohamed El Munir with that rocket of a shot. I mean, he took on 4 guys last year and scored a goal. So I guess I shouldn't be that surprised that he's got a rocket of a right foot that he can curl away from Bingham. But then we have 19-year-old Bryce Duke and Jose Cifuentes, these kids who just came up with us. I mean, Bryce Duke out of the U.S. Barca Academy looking pretty good. Cifuentes, one of those midfielders that we didn't know would get a lot of run, because between Latif Blessing, Mark Anthony Kaye, and Edward Atuesta, we feel like we're pretty solid, although Mark Anthony Kaye hasn't had the best tournament at all so far. Cifuentes and Bryce Duke take these shots that are not only on goal, but they're rockets. And I just felt like our team started to feel themselves a little bit more. And, of course, Rossi with the capper in the 2nd minute of stoppage time. 6-2, absolutely demoralizing. And to not have Cheech out there, to not have Jonathan Dos Santos out there, I don't think it is a full picture at all of what Carson is going to look like. But, man, did it look like Guillermo Barros-Schelotto wanted to be there any less? Every time they showed him. I mean, we put up a little GoFundMe, a little picture on our Twitter account if you want to check it out. It's he wants to go back to Argentina, man, and it's rough. They do not look good. I'm sorry. They do not look good with him right now on the back line. He doesn't have any help on defense. He needs some young defenders out there. Why? I think is it Zubac or Zubac or whatever his name is out there. He's a quality young kid. I want to see a little bit more of him. Efren Alvarez, that kid was supposed to be the next big thing. He hasn't gotten a lot of big minutes. But LAFC, the fact that we've given up 5 goals in the first 2 matches is a little problematic. And I think that when you go up against some more quality than we've seen so far, I don't believe Houston or Carson are the quality of this tournament at all, then I think we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But the one good thing is, without the reigning MLS MVP who happened to put 37 in the back of the net last year, to be able to put up a 6 spot on Carson of all teams, I think it bodes well for us with no Adama Diomande, no Adrian Perez, who's one of our better strikers off the bench. And now we're seeing it's the Diego Rossi show, but he's seeing contributions from guys like Brian Rodriguez and Bradley Wright Phillips and people who we didn't expect to contribute. So for me, the fact that we outshot them never matters, because they've found ways to beat us with 2 or 3 shots on goal. The fact that they had more fouls than we do, that's kind of the way we play. We're more of a finesse team. I mean, look, Diego Rossi is one of the classic divers in Major League Soccer. We know. We try between him and Latif. They like to go down a little bit, although Latif is the most fouled player on our squad. But what I really liked about this is we showed we can put 6 on the board without Carlos Vela. And I think we can do that against almost anybody. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in our next match.
Yeah. So a bunch of questions as we were going through all that. So first off, Andrew, you looked a little confused partway through. Did you know that teams are allowed 3 DP signings?
No, unreal. I thought that was against the rules.
I saw you shaking your head in confusion.
I thought the only DPs you're allowed to have were academy players whose names were Alex Muil or Omir Fernandez. I thought that's how that worked.
Yep.
Is that not a thing?
I mean, Carson had 4 for a little bit, right? Carson somehow found a way to work that out with Roman Alessandrini and that whole mess. So
that was wild.
we're only using 3.
The Red Bulls DPs come in for $2 million, never see the field ever again, but they fit the system, so that's all that matters. Yeah.
I mean, they're better than Medina, though, right? So what can I say about that?
Fair. Well, we don't know because we've never seen Jorgensen play, so
I have seen him play a total of like 7 minutes, and he has looked.
For the first team or for Red Bull too?
Yes.
Okay.
Return on investment.
Yeah.
He's not going to last. He does not have –
No.
He did not pan out the way they thought he was going to.
No. Second question for JR is I get a lot of stick from my 2 co-hosts that I greatly prefer. It's not a close comparison. Zlatan is miles and miles and miles ahead of Chicharito.
Oh, it's not even close.
Thank you.
We don't give you stick for that. We give you for the fact that you bring up how bad Chicharito has been after 1 game here. That's what we gave you stick for.
So the question I wanted to ask is, as an LAFC fan in these kind of games,
yes,
who strikes more fear into your heart, seeing Chicharito up top or seeing Zlatan?
Oh, again, it's so full disclosure, I was 7 feet away from him as he was warming up to come in for the first time down in Carson. That 4-3 match where he scored a goal that Tyler Miller is still looking for right now. That 40-yard strike. I've seen maybe 1 or 2 soccer players in my lifetime where I have looked at and gone, that's different. That looks freakish. What's going on there? And Zlatan, and maybe it was because he was warming up right next to their number 2 overall draft pick that year, Thomas Hilliard Arce, who might be 5'4" on a good day, 145 pounds, right? So you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who's only scored 500 and some odd goals in his professional career, warming up against this kid who had his first facial hair 7 minutes earlier. And to watch Zlatan, just the way he warms up, the way he carries himself, the way he walked onto the pitch to take his seat on the bench, where we didn't even think we would see him. And then all of a sudden, 70th minute, he gets up. When he got up, it wasn't just the whole crowd that stopped what they were doing. Our back line on LAFC in that first game all looked over and went, okay, all right, here we go. And in that last goal where he heads in the match winner 4-3 after we were up 3-2, we were up 3-0, I believe, in that game. When he heads that in, I'm watching, and we had Laurent Simon, who up until that point, he was our guy, right? He was bulletproof. He was the general. He scored free kicks. He took headers from everywhere. He sized up. I watched the play. He sized up Laurent Simon and went, oh, yeah, this is not going to be a problem. And rose out of the air, headed in that ball. And from that moment on, I knew MLS doesn't have one of those. We have Carlos Vela, who might be the most skilled player maybe to ever even play in Major League Soccer. He is that talented. But in terms of a singular entity who could take over a game by himself, I don't believe the league has ever seen anything like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So when you talk about striking fear, everyone knew walking in Zlatan was going to get his. But everyone also knew, look, Carlos Vela is also the only player to score in every derby except for that last one, right? So for me, Zlatan all day long, Chicha needs a system. Zlatan needs a soccer ball. That's the only thing that Zlatan needs. So I don't think Guillermo Barros Schelotto wants to create a system for a player who he doesn't feel has the scoring ability that he used to. I think that Chicha is going to find a way to get a ton of goals. The run that he made in their first match, I thought that it was a very classic Chicha run. He found a space that MLS defenders don't normally occupy. He put it in the back of the net. I think that's something that's a very Chicha goal. But that wasn't off of a system. That was off of him doing things in the box. So if you're asking me, I don't think Chicha was the great signing. I think Chicha was the big name that Carson has always done well in signing. The only difference to me, in my opinion, David Beckham changed Major League Soccer. Robbie Keane was the best player in the league. Even Ashley Cole, who was an incredible defender, they did so well by their big names. Really, Steven Gerrard was the only one that didn't do a whole lot for Carson. And I think this is going to go down as, well, he was the big name. He sold a lot of jerseys. He did a lot of things. But I don't think he's going to bring the results on the pitch. So I'm not worried about Chicharito at all. I'm a lot more worried. I was a lot more worried, to be perfectly honest, about Christian Pavone coming into the season, because that kid's a super talent. But I don't think he's going to be there longer than this year either. So we'll see.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I was literally just shaking my head in agreement that entire time. I've said the same things before. I think you can count the number of games last season that Zlatan, the LA Galaxy were losing because that back line is just a dumpster fire. Zlatan looked at his teammates and said, okay, just give me the ball. I got this. Like, right? Don't worry. Chicharito doesn't have that swagger. He doesn't carry himself necessarily like that. I mean, he has more, career accolades, European pedigree than that entire team put together.
Sure.
But he's not going to be the one to say, just give him the ball and I'll do this. He's that classic, like you said, poacher, fox in the box, whatever you want to call him, who needs the support around him in order to do anything.
Right. I mean, look at the passing numbers. When we played Carson with Zlatan, the highest percentage passing combination on Carson was David Bingham to Zlatan Ibrahimovic, because they would play hero ball and it'd be the deep pass the entire time. And you know what? It worked a lot.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to ask while we were going through that is, there aren't many transfers in this league that I'm like visibly shocked at. The first one I can remember is Lloyd Sam going to DC, leaving Red Bull. I remember I saw that online and I was like, oh, that's really like, as a Red Bull fan, I was really disappointed. Obviously going to the rival, Lloyd Sam's a player. You know, I love seeing Walker Zimmerman leave. Granted, it was a boatload of money to you guys, but like, who signed off on that?
You know, it was apparently, as Nashville put it, they made us an offer we couldn't refuse, which I guess that was the case. I don't know, it was $350,000 in some allocation money and then some other stuff later on down the line. And for me, what he meant was such stability back there on the back line, especially him pairing with Eddie Segura. Eddie Segura might be the most underrated defender in Major League Soccer. And I'm probably biased when I'm saying that because I see him, you know, game in and game out. We call him Steady Eddie because he always seems to be in the right position. That first clearance when we gave up the own goal, that wasn't a great clearance there by Eddie Segura. It was kind of a very elaborate header that he tried to put out of the box. But Eddie Segura has been such a steady presence for us. But I think a lot of it came that he was also feeding off of the leadership of Walker Zimmerman back there. And it hurt so much to see Walker go, not just because of what he brought on the pitch, but also off the pitch. He was such a good guy, had a lot of fans, super friendly. I mean, you saw how he ingratiated himself to the Nashville community immediately. They put him front and center in front of all that they did. That trade or that deal, I guess, that transfer just blew me away. I'm still not happy about it. Look, we talk about it all the time. I said it on our last episode, 105, that we just recorded. I miss Walker Zimmerman. I absolutely. And to me, when you are bringing in a Dejan Jakovic to take his minutes over completely, when you don't have someone waiting in the wings, look, Tristan Blackman has been solid, and I think he will be solid in this league, but I still think he's got a lot of seasoning to do first. Bringing in Andy Nahar. Andy Nahar is the Derrick Rose of Major League Soccer. Can't stay healthy, can't stay on the pitch. He's not even ready to play in this tournament right now, even though we brought him in there. I love Mohamed El Munir, and I will be the first to say when we traded Joao for Mohamed El Munir, I didn't like it. This guy had just given up like 80 some odd goals, right, for Orlando the season before. And watching him play, it took 2 games for me to love Mohamed El Munir. But missing Walker Zimmerman, I think we have not yet recovered, and we don't know how to play without his leadership yet.
That back three, so Tyler Miller, Walker Zimmerman, and Segura, 23. I don't know how Walker, 22, 21, whatever Walker Zimmerman is, and Tyler Miller's young as well.
Right.
That could have been your back three for 10 years. Like that,
Sure.
That's your dynasty back line coming off that ridiculous season you guys had where they were just locked down defensively. I mean, Andrew and I have spoken about Diego Palacios to start the season, especially in that CONCACAF game where he got.
Didn't look good.
We felt bad for him.
He didn't look good. Cheeky. Well, Blackman looks really, really good right up until he doesn't, right? He has a couple of those plays where you're like, oh, but I will say, you know, with Cheeky, I think he's still getting used to the system. He came in so late last year. He hasn't quite been the player I thought he would be, to be perfectly honest. You know, we'll have to see what happens there. I don't know what they're doing with Blackman now. Like, is he going to be a wing defender? Or is it going to be Dejan Jakovic and Eddie Segura in the middle? Or is it Tristan taking some of those minutes? I don't know. What I do know is, you know, it's nice to have a team, a club, a franchise. You know, we look at ourselves as a club. You know, it really goes from the owners all the way on down. We're not a team. We're not a franchise. You know, we're a club. Mm-hmm. It's really nice to have a club that spends a lot of their money on offense, right? Because it's more fun to watch a game 5-3 than it is 1-0. But I would love to see what kind of commitment we're going to make long-term to our back line. I feel like with Latif Blessing and Mark-Anthony Kaye and Edward Atuesta, for as long as we have those three, we're going to be really solid. And if we're bringing Jose Cifuentes, Pancho Ginella, Bryce Duke, I mean, we have quality in the midfield. I would put our midfield up against any team in Major League Soccer with the depth and quality of whoever we have out there on the pitch. Our back line, not so much. So we'll have to see what happens with our back line over the course of this tournament.
I mean, that's the thing is you look at the 11 you guys had when you arguably should have won MLS Cup last year. I mean,
right.
It was yours to lose. No one was stopping you with the form you're on. The back line was solid. I mean, you could have maybe improved on the outside backs, whatever.
Right.
Midfield was fantastic. And the forward line was stupid. I mean, it genuinely was unfair at points. I hated it. Andrew hated it. Connor hated it. It's not fair.
Right.
Can't have one goal. You can't have Carlos Vela scoring 200 goals in a season.
He tried.
I know, and he was close.
He did.
But you look at the team. Dynasties don't necessarily exist in the sport. I mean, we had the Galaxy, we had that TFC team, but you guys were, 1-2 players away from just domination for at least the next 2 years, I think.
Sure. It's tough because John Thorrington, our general manager, has said from day one that we are a seller's team. Our goal is to buy young talent for cheap and coach them up, do the best we can. I mean, look at Diego Rossi is a prime example of that, right? We're hoping that Brian Rodriguez becomes a prime example of that, where we can sell and then put that money back into the team. But at the same time, it's hard. I'm an American sports fan, right? I am spoiled when it comes to basketball. I'm a Lakers fan. So we have only won championships. That's something that we are pretty good at. And we go out and we get the best guys and we keep the best guys. And we're not talking about good guys. We're talking about the Shaqs, the Kobes, the LeBrons. Like we get the best player in the league and then pair him with the second best player in the league if we can. So to see this, I'm also a Mets fan. So I'm used to the exact opposite end of that spectrum where we get them after they've done all of their good stuff. The Tom Glavins, the Warren Spahns, those kind of guys. It's really fun to watch those things happen. But, it's tough watching guys like Diego Rossi and Edward Atuesta play very, very well and go, well, we're not going to have them for very long. And to know that you have to replace them. But we have such talent on the front line. We have such talent in the midfield. We don't really have that yet. We haven't built that depth on the back line. We're hoping Cheeky can be that. I love Mohamed El Munir. I think he might be a big part of our future moving forward. We'll see.
Yeah. Last point, and then we can move on, or Andrew and Connor can say stuff. But
this is just the Adam show.
Honestly,
I had a lot. I was literally just writing notes while JR was breaking that game down. The craziest thing to me for LAFC was watching that documentary that first year. The way you guys scouted and decided who you were going to sign before you kicked off was, I mean, I can't compliment that enough. You saw Bob Bradley write down, like striker, and then he said, these are the 5 names we're looking at to fit the system. I want this guy. Like, he's my top choice because I know the way we want to play. How reasonable is this? And you guys broke it down, and it looked like each position was just well thought out, planned for. Like, that's the way you want a team to look. I give a lot of crap to MC Cincinnati because they came into this league with 19 defenders. And
all of which came from USL.
Yeah, but again, you can't come into this league with no game plan other than to sit behind the ball and hopefully not lose every game 17-0.
I'm gonna run through the notes that I was taking as well.
We're gonna be here for the next 3 hours.
You mentioned Carlos Charlotto looking awful. The way that he looked reminded me of Patrick Vieira when we beat them 7-0. That is the exact correlation I made. In terms of the PK callback, awful. As a goalkeeper, that hurt me in my soul. He was off the line by 6 inches. Allow it. BWP, greatest striker of all time. You will never convince me otherwise outside of maybe Thierry Henry if you want to go and call him a true striker, even though he played left wing most of his career in MLS. I like Cisniega. I really do. I know we were talking about goalkeepers before. Don't know what your thoughts on Vermeer are. Not a huge fan myself, personally.
So my thoughts on Vermeer are incomplete, right? Like, I'm a teacher, so I'll grade him incomplete. I don't think we've seen enough of either Pablo Cisniega or Kenneth Vermeer. I will say this. I've had the pleasure of being at practice a couple of times to watch Pablo take balls, and he hits the ground so violently hard every time that it's no wonder. I mean, he had a ruptured spleen before he came to LAFC, right? Like, he's done all kinds of damage to his body, and the kid is young, super young.
Yeah.
I don't know that he can withstand the kind of wear and tear that he puts on his body game in and game out, practice in and practice out, especially if you're going to trade Walker Zimmerman and have that back line be a little bit more porous. He's got to go all over the place. He's a violent goalkeeper in the way that he throws himself at that ball. And that's why, personally, that second PK, where if you watch the first one, He goes all out. He makes the save. He committed to that line. It didn't look like he committed to that line again, that second PK. He was going the same way, but if you watch that dive, go back and look at the second one. He takes a lot out of himself when he goes to ground on these balls. Incomplete on Kenneth Vermeer, incomplete on Pablo Cisniega. For me personally, I like the pedigree of Kenneth Vermeer in that he's played in Europe. He's played in some of the bigger leagues. So I want to see him first, but he's not the youngest guy either. So we'll see.
Gotcha. And then my final point, you keep talking about how good your midfield is. You don't have Sean Davis and Alex Mawil, though, so you are not the best midfield in the league. All right, cool. On that note.
I will respectfully disagree, but we will move on.
No, I had to throw that in there. We have a thing on this show where we have to hit quotas. Adam has to talk about Ali Adnan, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, trash FCC, and I have to bring up Alex Mawil at least once or twice an episode.